Hello, I'm Anthony David Hobbs, aka AD Hobbs, and this is a short review of Flash Gordon. It's got to be short because another one I did didn't come out right because it was too long, but anyway, get to the point. The point is, it's 2014. Flash Gordon came out 80 years ago in 1934, so I figured I should say something about it because it's 80 years old, that's a round number, 80. Well, it all started in, further back, around about the year 1929, the Buck Rogers comic strip came out, and because it was so successful, another newspaper needed a competitor of this. So they did the comic strip Flash Gordon in 1934, and it was created by Alex Raymond, who's British, but the Flash Gordon franchise is made to look like it's made by Americans so that it would sell in America. And it was a huge success, yes, both in England and America. And then in 1936, there was a cinema serial called Flash Gordon. And it was basically a 13-part story, each one about 25 minutes long. And basically, before people had televisions, the equivalent of that was kids would go to the cinema, they'd see an episode of something, and it would end on a cliffhanger. So if you want to know what happens, be in this cinema theatre next week to find out. And they do that thing with television now, but it all started in the 1930s. Not just Flash Gordon, other adventure serials had this idea, you know, to get you to spend your money, basically. If you want to know what happens, spend your pocket money on a ticket next week in this cinema. And the format worked, and Flash Gordon was a huge success. And then in 1938, there was a follow-up called Flash Gordon's Trip to Mars. And then in 1940, another one called Flash Gordon Conquers the Universe. That's what it's called. Sorry, I got the title a bit wrong there because I haven't seen it. I've seen Flash Gordon's Trip to Mars, but not the third one, not the end of the trilogy, you know. And Flash Gordon is not my most favourite sci-fi thing, but I give it full credit because it influenced Star Wars a lot, you know. Like the Hawkmen live in a city that floats in the sky. That's just like Cloud City in Empire Strikes Back. In Arborea, the Tree Men, it's a moon, but it has a breathable atmosphere that you can breathe in, and there are people living in the trees there. That's just like the Endor moon in Return of the Jedi. So all these things, you see where he gets his ideas from, you know. I mean, obviously, Star Wars had other influences as well, but I think the main one was Flash Gordon. In fact, so big a fan was George Lucas of Flash Gordon that he originally, in the mid-70s, he wanted to buy the rights to Flash Gordon to make a movie version of it. But the film franchise wouldn't let him do it, so he had to create his own thing, which was Star Wars, you know. Which I suppose, yes, and it shows Star Wars is very Flash Gordon-esque, you know. And which is better, Flash Gordon or Star Wars? Well, honestly, Star Wars, yes. It's like the improved version, but I give full credit to Flash Gordon because it got here first. And so by that logic, I should give full credit to Buck Rogers because that got here first, you know. Yes, you see, Buck Rogers, before Buck Rogers, we had science fiction like War of the Worlds, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Journey to the Centre of the Earth. So very serious science fiction about you know, like the future of humanity, you know, where are we going, what's our direction, what's our destiny in this universe. So very serious issues like that, which is all great, I'm all for that. But Buck Rogers was the first sort of feel-good factor adventure, you know. Some sci-fi is serious, some is just very light-hearted and just pure entertainment. And Buck Rogers was the first to do that, you know. It's like cowboys and Indians in space, basically. That's what it's like. If there'd been no Buck Rogers, there would have been no Flash Gordon. If there hadn't been Flash Gordon, there wouldn't have been Star Wars. If there hadn't been Star Wars, there wouldn't have been Battlestar Galactica. And if there hadn't been Battlestar Galactica, there wouldn't have been the 1979 TV show of Buck Rogers. You know? So this whole sci-fi thing started with Buck Rogers and comes full circle and ends with a modern version of Buck Rogers, you know. Anyway, my favourite version of Flash Gordon in 1980 was the movie just called Flash Gordon. And it's ironic, isn't it? They wouldn't let George Lucas make the movie Flash Gordon, but because Star Wars was such a big hit, and all these other sci-fi films are imitating the success, yes, Dino De Laurentiis thought, right, I've got to make a big sci-fi film to compete with Star Wars. Now, Flash Gordon takes an unusual step, you know, because you see, they could have done a serious drama, you know, but instead they sort of camped it up and made it sort of very pantomimey and silly, you know. However, it depends how you define camp. Because the movie of Flash Gordon is camp, but camp within reason. It's serious when it needs to be. And so, yeah, there are some quite violent bits. I mean, it's only a PG, but, you know, pretty dire stuff, you know. When a robot has his eyes pulled out and a woman melts after being shot with a laser gun. Yeah, that's pretty grim stuff, yeah. So there are a lot of laughs in it, but a lot of serious action bits in it as well. And I think the reason they did this was because Queen were a very popular band at the time, and the songs were done by Queen, and they're a very sort of light-hearted, feel-good factor style of music, you know. But also, you see, as I said before, in the 30s there was a cinema serial of Flash Gordon, and kids loved it, grown-ups liked it too, because of the silliness, you know. It's done in a very silly, light-hearted way, but a lot of fun, you know, not silly in a bad way, silly in a good way. Then in the 1950s there was a TV show version of Flash Gordon, there's many versions. In the 50s they had a very serious, dark, gritty tone to the Flash Gordon story. And the people didn't like it. No, they thought, no, we like the silly version before. You know, let's have that back. So ironically, Flash Gordon went serious because they thought that's what the people wanted. But no, they preferred the silly, feel-good factor version of Flash Gordon. So I suppose for that reason, in 1980, there was a light-hearted version of the story. And yes, I suppose I should mention it. In 1979, there was a cartoon of Flash Gordon, and they had little small 4 or 5 inch figure action figures to go with the franchise, because that's what Star Wars were doing. Yes, the cartoon Flash Gordon was made because of the success of Star Wars, and so was the film. Ironic, really, because Flash Gordon was the influence behind Star Wars in the first place. And then, well, I'll say there are many things I love about the 1980 movie of Flash Gordon, but I haven't got all day, so I'll just say the main reason. I first saw it when I was 8 years old, never heard of Flash Gordon, you know, and it was a great intro to it, because I'd never heard of Flash Gordon, that was really cool, because it was totally unexpected, totally unpredictable, what on earth was going to happen next. And one of the things I liked about Flash Gordon was he's just an ordinary man. He doesn't have amazing powers like Superman or the Incredible Hulk. He's just an ordinary man, but that made it more exciting. He could die at any second from these dire, you know, problems. And also, another thing I liked about it was, in the opening sequence, he's nothing to do with space adventures at all. He's just a regular athlete. He makes a living playing American football, you know. So he knows little or nothing about space travel. So it's a bit like the idea of getting a regular guy from our world and putting him into the magic world. I think that's what was appealing to me. It's a bit like Dorothy going to see the land of Oz, or Lucy going through the magic wardrobe and randomly finding herself in the land of Narnia, or Jim Hawkins in Treasure Island. Okay, that's not a sci-fi film, but he has a regular dull existence, and then suddenly it gets really exciting. He's whisked away to Treasure Island. So yes, that's an element that's very appealing in that. You know, the fact that you don't have to be amazing, you don't have to have superpowers to go on great adventures. So yes, there was something reassuring about that. Yes, I love Flash Gordon right from the start to the finish. It was one of the greatest films I'd ever seen at the age of 8, and it still holds a special place in my heart. You know now. And Defenders of the Earth, that was a cartoon in the mid-80s. It's in because, you see, Flash Gordon movie wasn't successful enough to make a sequel, so the cartoon sort of takes place after the events of the film. And yeah, it's quite good, it's quite cool. You know, the big difference being, instead of taking place on the planet Mongo, the adventures take place on Earth, and they have to defend the planet from the invading forces of Mongo from the planet Mongo. Hence the title of the show, Defenders of the Earth. Then, around about the year 2007, there was a TV version, a live-action TV show of Flash Gordon, which wasn't very good at all. Fans hated it, including myself, for many reasons. One of them is it's too different. It's too different from what we're familiar with. They've just changed everything, and it's not doing justice to the myth at all. So whenever you're doing a revamped version of something, yes, we expect to see some improvements, some changes, but don't be too different, otherwise it's silly. Like, well, here's one example of why I don't like the newest version of Flash Gordon. The Hawkmen don't fly. I was expecting state-of-the-art special effects of them flying with the wings, but no, they just sort of glide on these cloak things, which I thought was rubbish, you know. And also Prince Vultan who in every version, in the 1930s, 70s and 80s, he really loves life. He's really full of jolliness and confidence. No matter how dangerous the odds, he goes, "Whoa, great!" Yeah, he really has a great love for life. In the 2007 version, he's very dull and serious and looks like he's angry all the time. Which that's not Prince Vultan. That's rubbish. You know. So I think from these observations I've made, it's fair to say people like the feel-good factor, not the serious. Don't try and make Flash Gordon gritty and serious. Well, serious in parts, but for the most part, it should be jolly and happy and feel-good. Flash Gordon is pure escapism, you know. So if they ever do a new movie version or a new film version, do justice to the original comic strip. Make it very colourful and cheerful, you know, like the original comic, and like the movie as well, 1980. So, my favourite version is from 1980, and if they did another movie version, I don't know, maybe make it a little less camp, but only slightly, because the feel-good factor, that's what's so appealing about the Flash Gordon franchise, yeah. So, yeah, Flash Gordon has been wonderful for 80 years, and I think it still has a future. Yes, the character of Flash Gordon still has a future. If they do a new, really good version of it, I just hope filmmakers learn from the mistakes that have been made over the years with bad TV shows and bad films. But in my heart of hearts, I loved Flash Gordon when I was 8, and I think it's still a film for the kid in all of us. So in other words, if anyone's thinking about doing a movie version of it, make some changes, yes, but at the same time, do justice to the character. Okay, well, long live Flash, and take care.